The time has finally come for the highly anticipated Kagurabachi Seitei War Arc. There are a lot of moving pieces going into this arc, all revealed bit by bit, scattered throughout Kagurabachi Part 1, so it's easy to forget some of the details, which is why I decided to make this video. I want to focus on the facts, both about the war and then also any context from a character's past before the war, since it would be fresh to them in that time frame. This will mostly act as a refresher of the key players involved in the war and how they were involved, and also just the basic facts of the war that we have, and all that. So yeah, we're doing the basics. Welcome to Kagurabachi 101. I'm your teacher, Calcan, the Kagurabachi girl of YouTube. Before I teach this lesson, perhaps consider subscribing. Ooh. And now let's get into it. This is everything you need to know before the Seitei War Arc. To give us a boundary, I am not going to include the information that we learned in chapter 113. This is everything you need to know before, and chapter 113 is during, so I'm not going to include it. So here is the basic facts about the war itself. 22 years before the main story, before part 1, an island appears, which gets referred to as Shikoku. Danseki, which is the powerful ore that is used to create the enchanted blades, originated on Shikoku, so the citizens were immune to the side effects of the Danseki, which is if you touch it, you go boom. Shikoku invaded Japan and war broke out. Despite Japan's best efforts, even having sorcery become public knowledge, it still wasn't enough. Until Kunishige Rokuhiro somehow managed to stabilize the Danseki, and he made 5 enchanted blades. It was still a stalemate until he created the 6th enchanted blade, the Magatsumi, also referred to as the Shinuchi, and that is what led them to victory, where Shikoku surrendered and a peace treaty was signed. A year and 5 months after the initial invasion was the Malediction, where the remaining 200,000 citizens of Shikoku were annihilated by Akimura Soga, the sword master, the wielder of the Magatsumi. The public is not aware of the details of this eradication, and Akimura and the other sword bearers are all regarded as war heroes. The counter-sorcery army who fought in the war eventually turns into the Kaminabi, and there's an overlap of the people involved in that. And I'll go more in detail with the war itself when I go through each character that is going to be important to the arc. I did lie just a little bit. I am going to use context from chapter 113 just simply for the time frame of when this arc starts, because we know that it is a few months before the war begins, and the war was a year and 5 months long. That gives us a 2-year time frame that this arc is going to take place in, and I'm only using that context so I can give estimates of ages for each characters. So I'm giving a 2-year window, even if some characters don't end up appearing until the middle or something. I'm gonna give the approximate ages of how old each character would be at the start of this arc a few months before the war, and how old they would be at the end of the war. And we don't have exact months for birthdays, and also we're still missing some key months in the actual war time frame as well, so this might not be exact, but it should be pretty close to how old they would be. And some of the information is going to get repeated since it applies to multiple characters, but it'll be quicker the second time I say it. So first, it makes sense to talk about Kunishige Rokuhiro, who is, Chihiro's father. I think that goes without saying. It's implied that before the war, Kunishige knew Azami and Shiba, and the three have been set up to be really good friends. Kunishige is the only Japanese person able to stabilize the Danseki. Kunishige is the creator of the enchanted blades, which eventually led to Japan's victory. He had romantic relations with Akimura Soga's sister. Whether she was a girlfriend, fiance, wife, we don't know for sure, but what we do know is that she is Chihiro's mother, and that Chihiro was born before the Malediction, because the Malediction was in September, Chihiro was born in August. He is 20 years old at the start of the arc, and 22 by the end of the war. Next is Togo Shiba, who, like I mentioned, he knew Azami and Kunishige likely before the war. He possibly acted as an interrogator during the war, and probably specialized in stealth missions, because in the main story, in part 1, he excels in torturing and in being sneaky. He has been described as the pinnacle of sorcery, so we may see that in action. After the war, Shiba worked for the Kaminabi, but left on bad terms a number of years later. And he is 19 years old at the start of the arc and 21 by the end of the war. Next is Soshiro Izami, who, like Shiba and Kunishige, they all knew each other before the war, right? And also probably before the war is when Izami was kicked out of his home by his family for using their medical sorcery technique to fight, and he was described as a hot-blooded child. He specializes in hand-to-hand combat. Izami was promoted to executioner at 18 years old, which is during the war. I think it's important to remember that Izami is actually just a little crazy. Like, he looks actually crazed when he is fighting, and he's been described as a hot-blooded child, so I'm just curious how this all fits into his character. After the war and through part 1, Izami works for the Kaminabi, and he is 17 years old at the start of the arc and 19 by the end. Next is Akimura Soga. Before the war, his job was to defeat evildoers, where he met Saichi Samura. Akimura is the wielder of the Magatsumi Enchanted Blade, which is the final blade that was created. He was Kunishige's most trusted ally and the uncle to his child, Chihiro. Even though peace treaties were signed, Akimura performed the malediction, killing 200,000 because they were indoctrinated with the same teachings, so he considered them dangerous to Japan. Akimura was not defeated by the 5 other Enchanted Blade wielders trying to stop him, and he instead gave himself up after he completed what he set out to do. And Akimura claims he did this in his right mind. He is regarded as a war hero because the truth about the malediction is hidden. And he is 16 years old at the start of the arc and 18 by the end of the war. Next is Saichi Samura. Before the war, his job was to defeat evildoers, where he met Akimura Soga. Also, during that profession, he blinded himself because he couldn't stand the sight of all of the blood and the bodies. Samura mastered the eye white purity style, and he was a mentor to Aruha. He's the wielder of the Tobe Mune Enchanted Blade. He is regarded as a war hero, and the war traumatized him, and we know a lot of the context for him and how that impacts his character and all of the things, so I'm not going to go crazy into it, obviously, because half of part 1 is about that. So, TLDR, idol idealization, not allowing himself to be a father to his child because he was afraid that all of his darkness would be pushed onto her. He struggled to live with the sins of the war, all of the things. He got over that, though. So, I honestly don't think we're gonna get an insane amount of stuff about Samura, because we've seen all of his internal struggles from the war, unlike some of the others where it's just crumbs or nothing at all. But like, we know it's there, we just don't know what's going on. So there's not much to get with Samura at this point. But of course he'll still be important, he'll still pop up because he's Samura, you know what I mean? Enchanted Blade wielder. He is 20 years old at the start of the arc and 22 by the end of the war. Next is Yoji Aruha, who is a rookie and a prodigy of the eye white purity style, and he looked up to his mentor Samura. He's the wielder of the Kumiyuri Enchanted Blade, which was the last blade besides the Magatsumi. He is regarded as a war hero, and Aruha claims that getting chosen to wield Kumiyuri was the highest point of his life, and that working with Kunishige was his greatest honor. And I know we're sticking to mostly facts, but I'm going to get into speculation for just a second of things that we could touch on with him, because there are things about Aruha that we don't know that I think will get explained in this arc. Maybe his backstory, his character in general. Like, for example, there is a theory that is backed up by some evidence, but we're not entirely sure if it's just weird wording and stuff like that. But there is a theory that some people believe that he has suffered from memory loss, possibly because of, like, PTSD, which could explain his rose-tinted outlook on the war. I'm not saying that's true, but it is a possibility. And also, another thing, somehow I'm making this about Hirohiko. You can leave it to me to find a way to pull my goat into this somehow. For real, though, there's a reason for bringing him up, because a lot of people were able to predict aspects of Hirohiko's backstory because of the symbolism with Kumiyuri. So that logic could also apply to Haruha with either the Oiran stuff like people were to predict with Hirohiko, or also there's like the illusions, alcohol, other side of the abilities of the Kumiyuri that we could also touch on that could give insight to Aruha's character. So that's a thing. I just wanted to bring that up. He is 15 years old at the start of the arc and 17 by the end of the war. Next is Subaru, and there's not much to touch on here other than he was a wielder of an enchanted blade, and he is regarded as a war hero, and that's all we know about him. Same with this person who does not even have a name, but people like to refer to her as the Pink Wielder, or Pinky. She is a wielder of an enchanted blade and also regarded as a war hero. The last enchanted blade wielder to touch on is Ibuki Misaka, who is the older brother of Natsuki. He's the wielder of the Cloud Gouger enchanted blade. Before the war, Ibuki and Natsuki were undefeated in their hometowns, fighting together as a package deal. The war traumatized him, causing him to lose his will to keep fighting, and he eventually stopped honing his skills. He is deceased in the main story, so this may be our only chance to dive into his character, other than maybe possible context that we'll get in part 2 with Natsuki or something, but this might be it. And he is 18 years old at the start of the arc and 20 by the end of the war. Steering away from the enchanted blade wielders now, we have Natsuki Misaka, who is the brother of Ibuki Misaka. Before the war, him and his brother were undefeated in their hometowns, package duo, woo. He was in contention to wield an enchanted blade, but Aruha was chosen instead. He had already disliked Aruha prior to this because Aruha addressed everybody else with respect, but was obnoxiously chummy with Natsuki because they were only a year apart in age. In the main story, in part 1, Natsuki leads a squad for the Kaminabi. And he is 16 years old at the start of the arc and 18 by the end of the war. Next, a character I think may be important in this arc is Itsuo Shirakai, who is the creator of the Eye White Purity style. He is the teacher and master of Samura and Aruha. He roughed up both Misaka brothers on 2 different occasions. We know that Akimura Soga dislikes him. Itsuo is Kiri's grandfather, who is very much little at this point, but she would be alive, kicking somewhere. We also know that he is sexist, and I'm guessing he'll pop up in this arc just because of his connection with Samura and Aruha, and then also the Misaka brothers somehow. So I'm guessing that must have been during the war times, so he'll be present, I think. I think the 3 leaders of the Kaminabi in the main story in part 1 may end up being important as well. So those 3 leaders are Ichiki, Kazen, and Yatsuru. Ichiki and Kazen were both actively involved with the peace treaty being signed. Yatsuru is not seen in that panel. She could be out of frame, or there is the possibility as well that she kind of rose into power after the war. We're not sure. We know that Ichiki is a very capable fighter and that he also trained Shiba and Izami at some point. I'm not sure if that's before, during, after the war, who knows. Izuru is another character in the Kaminabi that I think could have some relevance. He's a higher up in the Kaminabi in part 1. We know that he dislikes Kunishige, and if I were to guess, he is one of the people that Shiba is on bad terms with after leaving the Kaminabi. Also, he is rumored, this is rumor, speculation, it is rumored that he is related to Itsuo and Kiri. So, that's a thing as well, because that can make him more relevant. Another character I think could come up, but is a little less likely, is Kudo, because he is also a Kaminabi higher up in part 1. If he does pop up, I really don't think he'll get much emphasis, but he might be there. He might show up somewhere, so thought I'd throw it out there. Of course, I have to mention the infamous Sojo panel where he is in the flower field, which is the Magatsumi's abilities, right? There's a chance we could get context for this, so I thought I'd shoehorn it in just in case. And we also know that Yura was impacted shortly after the Seitei War. Other Hashaku members were also probably impacted by the war somehow. Who knows if we'll touch on that or not, though, so I'm not going to go into every single Hashaku member and how they could possibly be connected to this. Just know that there is the possibility. So there, I think that is all of the necessities. I hope this was a nice little refresher to prepare you for the arc to come. And I know I am so excited to see this all come together, wrapped up with a little nice bow. I am so pumped to see all of these characters in action, interacting, and all of the things. Oh my goodness. Subscribe. I make Kagurabachi videos every single week, usually 2, but this is the 3rd one. What? Like this video. Woo! Like I like Kagurabachi, like you like Kagurabachi. Comment down below as well. Are you excited for this arc? I'm freaking pumped. Who are you most excited to see in their like young form? There's so many I'm excited about. I don't even know if I could like come up with one. I freaking love everybody way too much. So actually, I'm so excited to see Baby Azami. I'm gonna be so real. Natsuko Baby Natsuki Naruma. Oh my god. Okay, I'm getting really giddy now. Yeah, where was I at? Oh, become a channel member. You get a shout out at the end of the videos. And also, I make members only shorts where I talk about literally whatever I want to. It's only $3. And it's a good way to support the channel if you want to, but also just subscribing is freaking awesome too. So, cool. Thank you so much for watching. Get pumped up for the Seitei War. Ah, I'm so excited. Bye-bye. And I'm gonna address the nations. This is what we always do. I'm gonna pick like just one character because there's so many. Ibuki Nation. Ibuki Misaka Nation. I don't know if I've ever addressed you before. But like, oh my gosh, this is your time to shine out of like anybody because like you can't get him in the present. So like this is all you, babes. This is all you. And he's gonna get a face reveal, surely. We don't know what he looks like yet. We've just seen his bag. That's already beautiful, right? So like we've seen Natsuki and his beautiful mogging mug, right? Oh my gosh, imagine his older brother. Hello, oh my god, get excited. So Ibuki Nation, I'm loving this for you. Yes. Yep, it's all you. It's all you.